There we go. Thanks, David. Thanks, David. Appreciate, always appreciate it. We got to get an intro song to go with that. Kind of a walk-in. All right, guys, let's knock this out. Got to get to practice.
Which BC Boy song would it be?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I'd probably have to refer to, Mixmaster Mike on that one. But the catalog could be deep.
I heard a little bit of the clip that you did with on a podcast today, where just evaluating that stretch where BYU was to come back, and you pointed out that there's something to be said about being up 19 at BYU. Is that what you're looking at more than what happened in the final 10 minutes?
I mean, I think you look at both. I mean, I don't have to choose one, do I? Okay, well, yeah, I think you look at both and you figure out, what are some of the positive things that allowed you to get up, and then, what caused them or allowed them to come back. And, and also I think let's always have respect for our opponent, respect for playing on the road, and the teams make these, these steep climb comebacks, often at home. It happens. So, I think it was good for our guys to experience. I mean, I would rather we not experienced it, but we did. So let's live in reality and use it as a learning experience.
When you looked at the tape, though, defensively, did you see deficiencies in the three-point defense down the stretch?
We obviously could have been a little bit better defensively, getting out to some of those guys. They subbed in a shooting specialist. We kind of got caught overhelping a couple of times, but you're also overhelping on a kid who's going to be the first or second pick in the draft. And if you don't help on him and he makes the shot, that's where you kind of get stuck sometimes. And then, they had a guy, who is a good player, who hadn't been shooting the ball well, go 5 of 8 from 3, and so you're probably making some decisions on, where you want to be positionally in those gaps when you're guarding him, and he made his pay. So after the first couple, hopefully you adjust, but, he got on a little bit of a roll.
Braden gets a lot of attention for his offense, but that play he made at the end of the game, that specific play, and just how far he's come defensively.
Well, I think Braden's always had really good instincts defensively, and I think when you're talking about a guard defensively, it shouldn't be about wow factor plays. It's about just being solid. I mean, little things like how do you get over a ball screen that might not be sexy for you guys, but it might be way more important than a random block shot. In the grand scheme of things, it was an awesome play. Great instincts, great job by JB. The kid had a runway, and he's a good player. And JB, kind of got him off his line, and then didn't want to foul. And then luckily Braden, had a good enough instincts and enough courage to kind of come off the blind side on the backside and make a play. So I mean, it was a tremendous play. I don't want to make light of it, but I think the biggest areas, Braden's grown defensively is just the every possession steadiness, and he still has room to grow in that area, and we're going to continue to push him that way.
I mean, there appears to be games where Jaden is actively looking to score, like maybe at BYU, other games where he's looking more actively to facilitate and get others involved. Those conversations you and him are having, like, look, this is a game where I need you maybe to be on.
No, it doesn't quite work like that. Jaden's the player, I'm the coach. I mean, he's on the floor, I'm on the bench. So, it all comes down to, how he read and reacts to the game and what he feels, where he can find his advantages. And, Jaden's obviously a kind of an old school true point guard. And I think his number one priority is always to the team. And, I think secondly, his next priority is setting his teammates up and taking care of them. And then I think thirdly, if he feels like, he's got to be more aggressive, looking for his scoring opportunities, he does. And so, that's 100% on JB. That has really nothing to do with me.
So it's pretty exciting here, the start you've had, and the possibility of tying the program record for consecutive wins. I know you're already at the best start. Probably not something you walk in the locker room and say, hey, let's do that, but is that something you might want to reflect on?
I mean, you asked me, I don't even know the difference between best start and consecutive wins, so I'm confused at that one, and I don't want to make light of your question. Obviously, I'm excited we got off to a good start, but we're on a much bigger mission than getting off to a good start. So, you know what? The next game happens to be at Arizona State. It's been set that way all year. So next up, and I'm looking forward to practice today, and hopefully today's practice leads to a good practice tomorrow, which hopefully leads to a good performance on Saturday. Honestly, we talk nothing about streaks, nothing about winning streaks. We just talk about preparing to win the next game. And it's honestly that simple. And I know that may not give you the quotables you're looking for. And to be honest with you, Nate knows better than to come down and tell me we're on the verge of this or verge of that, because I don't, that doesn't impact me.
With ASU, you'll be getting to see someone you've already faced, and you kind of mentioned about with the way the conference is now, you don't get a lot of those. What are the advantages and disadvantages of having already seen this team?
Well, I mean, we each have tape on each other playing each other, so you can kind of see maybe what you think they were trying to do and what was successful for them, and what were you trying to do and you were successful with, and then you can just kind of decide if you need to make adjustments from there. I'm sure that the adjustments, I would be surprised if they're drastic on either side, but I just think that having a little familiarity is good, and then your guys go into the game and you can kind of challenge them on let's see if we can make progress from the last time we played these guys in these certain areas. And
There's still value in what you see from them in the game since looking at the film, like in case they've made different changes?
for sure, you're gonna try to anticipate what changes you think they can make, and it just obviously, if you've played somebody, it's common sense. If you've played somebody recently and you're playing them again, there's going to be a familiarity, and you're just not seeing as much of that in college basketball. Back in the day, was a few years ago, you played everybody twice. So it was common this time of year. You'd start to play your second game against people. Then you would the last half of your conference schedule, you were playing everybody for a second time. Then you got to the conference tournament, and then you played certain teams 3 times. So there's just a familiarity grew over the year. You're just not seeing that as much anymore, and it is what it is. It's not a complaint. It's just a reality. And so yeah, I'm excited to play to another team for the second time, and it's going to happen a few more times here in the coming weeks.
How did you look back at that game here? That's probably the toughest home game you've had so far. Anything you look back at that jumped out at you?
I mean, that they're really talented. They got shot makers. Their big guy played tremendous. Just in his little mid-range game, hitting some little middies and floaters. Kind of some short roll situations, which are elite shots. So they're just a really talented team that forces you to make decisions, and then they got a couple guards that can kind of create offense on their own when things break down. So, yeah, no, I mean, it's they're formidable. They're a formidable opponent, and that's how we're going to prepare.
Obviously, the dynamic you face in this conference weekly with the high-level games you play was much different than what you faced as an assistant coach when you were in the West Coast Conference. But you guys still performed once you got to the NCAA tournament level. How is that? How are these games different in preparing this team for
Just because you assume it's different doesn't mean it was different. And I'm not saying you're right or wrong. I'm just saying I'm approaching it the same way I learned from obviously my former boss and mentor to approach it. Day by day, steady, focus on the things that drive winning, and don't get distracted. Respect everyone. So literally, I feel the same. As it doesn't matter if it's a Big 12, a Pac-12, a WCC. We're gonna have the same approach, and I think that approach is drove some pretty consistent results.
I do need a bite. You said that you weren't going to speak to a bite, but this is relatively bite-worthy. What has Karchenkov done for your off-the-ball defense with this team?
Well, Yvonne, he's been able to really kind of impact the play defensively off the ball as well as on the ball. And to have somebody off the ball that you're comfortable, that has great instincts and you're comfortable getting through screens and things of that nature, I mean, it's really, really important to do. And he's been able to do a good job of that. Now, the challenge for him is to stay disciplined with it. I mean, I think I know in my conversation with him, the last couple of games, he's maybe had moments where he was, got a little bit undisciplined in his want of more, for a steal or something with his positioning, and our team has paid for it. So it's just for him to get back to trusting the day one habits that we teach, and not getting undisciplined. And that's really hard to do because why is he undisciplined? Because he wants more. Why does he want more? For our team to be successful. So you're telling somebody to kind of ratchet it down a little bit and be a little bit more disciplined. I mean, I think to me, that's just kind of where he's got to get his focus back to. But I mean, it's a good observation by you to notice his impact off the ball defensively.
The schedule, Tommy, where you've got some length between games, Monday, Saturday. What are some of the benefits of that right now?
I mean, rest, and just recovery, and just kind of mentally and physically. Maybe, as a coaching staff, being able to reset, a few things, and hey, let's kind of refocus on this, or, we've been talking about this recently and doing it a little bit. Can we get better at it? And then, are there some things we can add to our arsenal? So just rest and the opportunity to kind of, practice. It's always a good thing.
This actually next week after this game, you have a week free, probably as a result of going to 18 games. Is that kind of where you were looking for and hitting in kind of the middle of the conference season?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm really happy with how it broke. But I'm not going to sit here and act like I've been planning for this, because I wasn't aware we had these gaps in our schedule, because I honestly look like this game and then the next game, and I try not to look ahead. I just assume we have 2 games a week, and I thought, I just remember, and it's burned in my head from one of our Big 12 head coaches meetings, where they said the way the format of the schedule is, there was going to be no buys if we pushed the start date after Jan 1. And we pushed the start date after Jan 1, and I feel like I'm getting a buy, so this is great.
Would you ever consider in future years using that open spot for another conference game?
Probably not. Not when you're in the Big 12. We don't need a kicker.
Do you know roughly how you might do it, or would it depend on Saturday as far as do you give the guys a couple days?
I'm thinking about going to Cabo, for 3 or 4 days, kind of a Super Bowl thing, and I'll show up Saturday for the Oklahoma State game and hope the guys are ready. I mean, Bruce, I'm sure we'll work a couple days off over, with a week break, and and probably, kind of just break things down and build them back up with as far as resetting, with even individual habits and stuff like that. Just kind of use it as a little bit of a reset. We're not going to run the guys into the wall or anything like that. But you're right. You do know me well, and I'll make those decisions after Saturday.
So at this point, though, have you made any adjustments as far as practice length or anything, just because you are getting a little bit later in the season?
I think that's always a dilemma, that you're battling against, and and for me, I like practice. I don't like to over practice. I think I don't know what our guys would say, but based on my experience, I don't think we over practice. But I always just feel like there's so many little things that we can work on to give us advantages, and then I think habits are so important, and I think it's just a danger to assume that a habit's going to stick. I think you have to continue to emphasize certain things and learn from certain things, to keep your audience captivated. So I know that's a long answer to a simple question, but we probably scale back a little bit, but maybe not quite as much as we could. But I also don't think that we're, doing crazy practices that are running our guys into the ground either.
Does it affect anything as far as the fact that you're undefeated, you keep winning, so maybe you want to just keep everything going the way it is,
No.
You know what I mean?
No. We're always going to make the best decision based on where we currently think our team's at and what it needs, and the direction we want to go. So, no, I don't factor our record into any decision. We're honestly probably not practicing any different than we did last season.
Well, in the sense that you have a good routine going, obviously, so maybe you want to just keep it.
I thought we had a good routine going last year, even when we were 4-5. We were 4-5.
Kevin Young talked last week, Tommy, about the Saturday, Monday turnaround and how that is very NCAA tournament-like. What did you like about the way your team?
Well, it's honestly that's all I know. I mean, maybe it's Thursday, Saturday, just all those years, even in the Pac-12 and before, on the West Coast, it seemed like every conference played Thursday, Saturday. So to me, that's a natural rhythm. I don't really have a strong preference one way or another. I actually kind of enjoy the Saturday, Wednesday as well. I think it gives you a little more time to kind of spread things out and prepare. But, that being said, when you have the one-day turnaround, you also have to start weaving some of that second game preparation, into your earlier week of practice. I mean, you have to. So, yeah, I mean, it's however they slice and dice the schedule, we'll play it. So I don't have a huge preference one way or another. But where it was nice, the Saturday, Monday, it allowed us to breathe a little bit this week. So we might have had to squeeze that extra game in a little earlier with less rest, but on the backside of it, we got more rest this week.
You mentioned the Super Bowl Saturday, or Seahawks.
I thought we called it the big game.
The big one, whatever.
Do we have the rights to call it the Super Bowl?
Sure.
Okay, good. I don't know. I just keep hearing this thing on TV, and I kind of laugh. I'm like, really? Can't we just call it the Super Bowl? I mean,
Excited about that. And who was your guy? If you're Seahawks, who was your guy growing up?
oh man, Dave Craig, Kurt Warner, Steve Largent, Kenny Easley. I mean, those were my guys. Yeah. No, I mean, I grew up, watching the Seahawks. We actually had season tickets for a few years, and would go to some of those games back in the Kingdome, the good old days. But to be honest with you, football-wise, in the past, I'm not now, but I was a Rams fan. Eric Dickerson, 29, 2105. I don't know if that record been beat. I hope it hasn't been beaten yet. Rushing yards in a season. So I honestly grew up a huge Rams fan, and but then as I got a little older and more mature, I realized I probably should root for the local team, and it was the Seahawks.
He's a Seahawk, or he's a
No.
Mariners guy.
So Murph may or may not live in my neighborhood, and in our neighborhood, there's only room for one football fan and one football team, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles. So I always wonder why Murph suggests that we switch practice times and these things. I'm like, why would he care what time we practice on this Saturday or this Sunday? Like, who cares? Like, we have all day. Let's just get it done. And no, we're moving games around for the Philadelphia Eagles. Yeah. So, and luckily we don't have to move them around for the Mariners, or we would never practice because they play so many games. So.
One thing about, just back to ASU, you've said you get along with Bobby Hurley, have a good relationship. Does it add anything, at least in the back of your mind, when you know he's in the last year of his contract, struggling, that it's, he's in a tough spot?
Yeah, have empathy. These are hard jobs, and that's a great guy, and he's an iconic basketball player and coach in our culture. And so, if guys like him can go through tough times, any of us can. So I have empathy for him. And, it's like I told him last game, these fans have these signs and things like that. And, I know there's this rivalry deal and everyone gets excited and wants to make a joke at someone else's expense. I understand that's part of culture and whatever. I mean, I don't get bothered by it, but I just told him he doesn't deserve any of it. And I hope he knows that I don't think that way. That simple.
Well, it's just on that, I mean, and whether you feel like ASU is a tough place to win or anything like that.
For sure it's a tough place to win. Every place on the road's a tough place to win. No, I have no comments on Arizona State basketball with what they're doing with Bobby Hurley. But Bobby Hurley's a good human being, and I have empathy for him and maybe what he's going through. He and I don't have conversations about it. But I mean, if it is hard on him, I feel bad for him.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys.